Okay, gonna start recording onto my computer. We are recording. Setting up your meeting for YouTube Live. It's rolling. Done. Redirecting to YouTube. And we're going. We're live. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Cling. Welcome, my friends, to Pathway to Peace with Professor Matt here and myself, Joshua Marcos Munoz. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how we're dealing with world situations that are dealing with peace or war, and how we are dealing with it in our own world with peace and war in our own minds, right? And how are we doing things with it, and how are we doing things about it, and the difference between doing about and doing with. So Matt, I want you to take it away this time around and start us off by explaining to us, even in this world in 2024, November 2024, and how Russia has for over a year now been attacking Ukraine, and the US has been a big part of the war and, machinery, war machine aspect of it, and how perhaps some people are feeling helpless or feeling hopeless or perhaps even anger. And how do we deal, not just doing something about it, but how are we dealing with it? What do you think?
I think there's a big difference. That's a very big difference.
Oh, you're
It's a
muted, Matt. You're
easy
muted.
subject, especially right now, and it's getting more
Okay.
important. But yeah, we try to.
I'm gonna pause recording. And I can't hear
I'm not
you.
muted.
This has happened before.
You can't hear me. You could hear me before,
This
and I'm
is
not
this is what
muted.
we need, a podcast platform. I don't think we can do it on Zoom anymore.
So I would see if are you gonna start over?
Yeah, I'm even going into the recording on YouTube, and there's no audio.
If you're gonna start over, I'd suggest
See?
starting with the war, why don't you start with the with versus about, and see if and then go
Oh, I
to,
need
for
some
example.
hardwired headphones. That's what I need. For some reason, just when I need it the most, my headphones. Okay, so we're still recording. And we're going to speak about how our emotions are peaked in certain ways and what we do about it and what we do with it. So continue letting us know about that, Matt.
Okay. Um, okay, so we need to deal with our problems. We need to deal with our problems, but there's different ways of dealing with them. There's our actions that we take. What do we do about our problems? What are we going to do about that, right? You got a problem. What are you going to do about that? Well, those are action versus what do you do with it, right? So say you've got a problem, an ongoing thing, and you're whether you're dealing with it or not, action wise, what do you do with it? What do you do with the thoughts and the feelings, your thoughts and feelings around the problem while you're having it? So differentiate seems to be a very good differentiator between we're working on our thoughts, feelings, and actions. So working on our actions is what are we doing about it, and our thoughts and feelings are what do we do with that while we're having the problem. That's where what we have a lot of control over also.
So what we do with it, and then how we, one, become aware of it, two, we
Yep.
accept it, and then three,
Yep.
we take action towards it, right? So I, for
Or not,
one,
right?
have, or not, right? It's a
Mhm.
conscious choice, right? And
Right.
that choosing not to take an action is an action, right?
It's
So
an
that's
action, and it still puts you in control of yourself and your life. You're choosing not to. If you choose not to, then you choose not to, but it's you. It's not, nobody's making you not. Nobody's, it's not them. It's you deciding that I want to be in charge of me. I'm being a control freak in this department. I want to be in charge of me and what I do
That's right, in charge of me. And
and what
so
happens inside of me.
how do we do with it, right? What do we do with it? So what do we do with
What do we do with
ourselves?
that? What do you do with that?
And
Some
I'll speak for
examples.
my
Yep. Go
go
ahead.
for it.
Two big examples are the wars going on. What are you going to do about that? Well, there's some things you can do, some things you can't do. What do you do with it? Because they're happening and it's scary and it's happening, and we all have thoughts and feelings about it all. My other example is that I have cancer, and so what do I do
Mm,
about it? Well, I'm doing what I can do about it. There's not that much, it turns out. But I do what I can do. But what do I do with it? Ho 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 ho! All day, every day, I got to deal with the fact that I have an incurable, fatal disease. Now, what did I do with that? And how do I let it affect me? And all that. So, big deal.
yeah. Yeah. Well, for me personally, um, it's just it is frustrating and I feel angered in that my tax money and future costs and future bills, future taxes are going into giving supporting a war or an effort that I am not in agreement with, right? That if one country attacks another and it turns out to be an issue, that we don't just decide to give $182 billion to another country to fight a proxy war, basically because our president has decided that it's the best uh, method of going about it. And I still actually can't believe how the president has that much authority when it comes to supplying war money and weapons, and it's not going through the Congress, the judiciary, or even the judiciary system of the U.S. Where's the public debates and discussions about how hundreds of billions of dollars are going towards something that is, in one sense, not affecting the US at all in any sense, really, right? But here we are politically entangling ourselves with it and also risking US security because Russia is of course, getting getting pissed off at the US and NATO and all these other European countries that are organized in wanting to retaliate or help Ukraine. And anyways, so what am I doing with my anger? I am energizing myself to talk about it. To first explain to myself what and educate myself onto the reality of the situation. So I take extra time and effort to educate myself and to speak about it with those whom I feel may have some value and sharing their perspectives as well. So what am I doing with it? I'm expressing myself that I am angry about this war that Russia started with the Ukraine and how the U.S. is kind of just throwing gasoline into the fire. Where's the diplomacy? Where's the negotiations? As much as many people may not like Mr. Trump as president, who is going to be president-elect here soon enough, uh his expressions about it is wanting to create peace and negotiate a settlement. So why isn't that a necessary component moving forward into it since the beginning? I don't know. I don't know why. Why are we risking a further war with Russia directly with the U.S.? I mean, why, right? And so, what am I doing with it? I'm expressing myself, letting this be known. And this podcast is about inner peace that moves towards outer peace. So I think there's some room to talk about how what's the the state of the world with in terms of, outer peace. And
Okay.
so I just had to say that, had to express myself.
Okay.
And
You didn't have to, you
that
chose to, and that's cool. Go ahead.
yeah, I felt like I wanted to, yes. And that's what I
Okay.
meant
That's cool.
in other words.
Put you
But
in charge.
uh certainly, certainly. And what I also want to share is that as a breathwork facilitator and a practitioner of depth psychology, and how we are collectively, in one sense, co-enabling this situation to the degree we're tolerating it. And I have my breathwork teacher has every year this breathwork, these free international breathwork sessions via online that are dedicated to world peace, where the intention is to come together and have a 1 hour music set in which an overbreathing pattern is induced to get into different states of awareness collectively, so that we can all be with what we're feeling. Because many of us aren't even sure what we're feeling necessarily. And it's not until we get into these expanded states of awareness that I study that we become more aware that are different layers that are within us. And how Carl Jung has expressed it, there's a collective unconscious. The world, human nature has an unconscious connection to each other, like a network, like a subtle network. And that it's moving us towards our drives, our deepest drives, our drives for survival, our drives for meaning, our drives for creating and protecting ourselves, our family, our community, our kin, our nation state, our this and that. And so we're all moving towards the same things, just in different ways. And to become more aware of these things, I think is what breath work allows us to do, is it allows us to be with what is in our own subconscious mind, and then the collective subconscious mind. And so I just wanted to speak about that and say that I think it's appropriate to also be more aware about what is the reality of the geopolitics in our world, because it does affect us. It will affect us. If the US gets entangled in a war with Russia directly, we're going to hear and feel about it. And it just seems as if that's kind of where we're going. But otherwise, that's what I have to be with. You're muted, Matt.
Okay. I hear you have tons of thoughts and feelings about all of that, and that's fine. You're aware of them and accepting them, I think, which is cool. And you do have some actions to take in that regard if you like. Breathing is a good thing. I'm a big fan of breathing. Hoping to do that a little bit longer.
Yeah, yeah,
So why don't you talk to us about how to do breath work and how you can breathe out some of the
yeah.
that's going on inside of you?
That's a good question. Well, the transformational kind of conscious breath work that I practice and I teach incorporates humanistic psychology background. And so we all have these deeper aspects to ourselves that connect to the aware part of our awareness, our ability to become aware of our awareness, right? So there's an aspect to us, some call it spiritual, right? Some call it the Atma, as I do, and in Vedic understanding, the soul, right? So getting in touch with our higher aspects, let's say, in other terms. And these breathwork techniques incur an over breathing pattern in which we can breathe through the mouth. And in this over breathing pattern, in combination with a music set that has been very distinctly and specifically corrugated and curated to elicit a journey, an inner journey, in which there is nothing to consciously do or want to become, but just enter into and surrender and allow whatever it is that is inside of us to express itself. And so the 1 hour breathwork sessions that I like to perform have this over breathing pattern of the mouth breathing that gets us into these expanded states of awareness. And in these expanded states of awareness, we're able to express emotions, feelings that we may not even be conscious of at all, or even capable of being conscious of through words or through even actions. And so it's more of a practice of surrendering. There's actually two key aspects to the breathwork that I like to teach, and that is surrender and trust. Trust that, one, we have the ability to heal ourselves, and that there is an inner guiding intelligence within us that we only need to uncover. And once we uncover it, we must only surrender to it, because it's a knowing that is beyond the mind but includes the mind. And so in these expanded states of awareness, we're able to find more and more peace because we're able to let go of so many different strong patterns that we've held into our body from time even before we were born. Stanislav Grof, very famous transpersonal psychologist, has coined these terms and has created what is called now holotrophic breathwork, of which I have practiced and am a student of. And it creates profound states of healing. And so I think that if we all were more aware of the possibility of these expanded states of awareness and how to induce them through just breathing, just simple breathing patterns that is through the mouth, and in such a fashion that when it coincides with a music set will take us into a journey, an inner journey, kind of like an inner dream of sorts. And it can be very powerful and very healing on a personal level. And if enough of us do that personal level, then collectively we can become more of the change we want to become. And this brings me to a quote that I really like from the late political leader from India, Gandhi, that there's enough for everyone's need, but there's not enough for one man's greed. So even one person's greed of wanting is endless, it's infinite, right? And there's not enough resources for one person's greed, but there's certainly enough for everyone's needs. It's just more of a matter of management, right? And distribution and equity. And so that's what I have to share. Breath work, I think we'll talk about more and more, and how we can have different breathing patterns that can help us with meditation. And that can get into Dr. Buteko's work, a Russian medical doctor and researcher who came up with these under breathing patterns that help us actually increase the oxygen levels in our body and help create peace in the mind. And then the over breathing patterns of breathing that and all the practices that entail in that space. So that's what I think and I feel I have to share today about situation. The war with Russia and the Ukraine, and vis-a-vis the US, NATO, and so many other Western countries, and Israel at the same time attacking the Hamas regime or terrorist organization. is another thing, right? So technically, because we have two places in the world that are at war, we're in a world war. And I don't think collectively we've understood that, the gravity of the situation, and how if such things continue, they're going to spill over into another country, and we've got China uh, uh, entangled with Taiwan, and stating that it's a part of China, and with the current Biden administration, if China attacks Taiwan, the U.S. is going to back them up as well. So it's like, where does it end? Where does it end? You know, where do we collectively then begin to express ourselves and not tolerate this? Because to the degree that a government or a people tolerates the government, they deserve it. What do you think, Matt? You're muted again.
Yeah, I don't get into the politics of it. I do think that, my specialty's in dealing with thoughts and feelings. And so I'm not sure what to do about it, frankly. And I'm a little
Mm-hmm,
stumped
mm-hmm,
myself, and it
mm-hmm,
feels so
mm-hmm,
huge and so overwhelming
mm-hmm.
and
That's totally
I feel
valid.
so powerless in this department. I
Mm-hmm,
don't let it bother me on a daily basis too much.
mm-hmm,
When it
mm-hmm,
does get big and relevant, then I try to deal with the emotion around it at that time.
mm-hmm,
But what I'm trying to do is teach the
mm-hmm,
world how to be peaceful so that we
mm,
can do something about this. So kind of on a
definitely,
foundational level, I think that's what we're doing
definitely.
here today, and that's what I do all
Yeah,
day, every day, or try to.
yeah.
And so I feel like I am doing something about it. Um, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
so that helps me.
mm-hmm,
That helps me feel better. It helps me,
mm-hmm,
calms me because I'm doing something about it. I think.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I
I
think
think
so
the
too.
next
I
generation
think we
sees
both
something
are,
really.
to that degree.
Yeah.
In sharing this knowledge, sharing the tools, right, on how to do that, even just the permission to go ahead and accept, right, become aware
Hmm.
of what
Hmm.
is really going on, and know that it's not anything that somebody's doing to you, right? Like nobody's doing anything to me that's making me feel what I want to feel. I'm feeling what I
Correct.
want to feel. I'm accepting what I want to feel. And I am not, then by taking ownership of that, I can then change what I want to feel, right? So I can choose. I have the power, I have the ability, I have the will, right? And so this
Yes.
is what part of this podcast is. Most of this, what this podcast has to offer is just to really speak to our audience and encourage them, right? Give them the courage to enter into their ability to affect themselves, right?
Yep. And that starts with taking ownership, like you just said. I think then awareness, and then acceptance, and then decide what you're going to do about it. But expression, you mentioned about expressing, you mentioned about breathing, you mentioned about meditating, you mentioned about getting some therapeutic help, that kind of thing. There's a lot of things we can do with them. Yoga, um, and we need to do some of those. Some of them are life enhancing, some of them are life saving, actually. And so it's
Mm,
a critical subject these days.
mm. Okay, there's something that I can share as we start winding down this podcast episode. Um, I'm all about practical tools, right? So I want to implement and suggest something every time. So as a breathwork facilitator, of course, I know many breathing tools, many tactics and techniques. And one of them is called box breathing. It's becoming more and more famous on the internet these days. And it's really, really simple. And the gist of it is you can think about a box with four even sides and think about breathing in such a fashion that there are 4 seconds of inhalation, 4 second hold, 4 second exhalation, and then a 4 second hold. And then you just repeat that. So let's say you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling and you're accepting that you are angry about the amount of money that is being spent on wars, right?
Or
So
whatever.
you want to call or whatever,
Whatever you're mad
or
about. Yeah, whatever you're mad about.
or you just stump your toe on a rock,
Yeah.
right? As simple as and easy as that. What's a tool, what's a breathing technique that can allow you to stay present and allow it to pass through? And this simple breath work technique of just box breathing can activate your relaxation, your peaceful state of being, your what's called in psychology, your parasympathetic nervous system. And and if we get activated because we stump our toe, then we can just sit down, close our eyes, and count 1, 2, 3, 4, breathing in and hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, breathing out. 1, 2, 3, 4, holding. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And in doing so, what it does is harmonizes your heart with your brain waves. There's a heart brain variability, as it's called, HRV. And if we want to have that more harmonious and in sync with each other, this box breathing is an excellent tool for that. So if there's anything else you want to share, Matt, in terms of like, what do we do with our emotions instead of always wanting to do about it? We'll share that and wrap it up.
Well, another part that I think is very useful is that most of our emotions are based on our thoughts. So it goes thought, feeling, action in that order. And so when we're feeling something, notice the thoughts that are behind it. You're saying it's not fair and this isn't right and we're in trouble and we're in danger. And those are thoughts, right? Then the feeling is anger, fear, sadness, anxiety, la la la. So thought, feeling, action, not always that way. Some stuff happens to us and we have a feeling right away without any thought at all. And like in little kids that don't even have a thought, like infants, and they used to have plenty of feelings. So it's not always that way, but predominantly that way, in my opinion, and based on the research. And so if we investigate our thoughts, that's where we have the most control. That's where if we think this isn't fair, you could, and in general, you can get yourself all worked up about it if you keep thinking about that. If you adjust it a little bit and you can change your thoughts a little bit, then you can probably feel better. So maybe is there some things you can do, like for example, you said, we are doing something about it. We are doing something about it. We're doing this podcast and we're trying to teach the kids and people how to be more aware of their feelings so that they don't have wars. And so that makes you settle down a little bit and that makes you feel a little better, right? Because that's a thought. I am doing something about it, right? Does that help
Yeah,
you?
yeah, no, that clarifies for me more of taking the responsibility of what we're feeling and that
There you go.
we have the ability to change it. I mean, that's our ability to respond to ourselves, right? Our responsibility.
And
Awesome.
reorient is a good word, right? Your word,
Yes, I
reorient.
love that. Correct, correct.
Say more about that
Yes,
one. You like that word?
yes, I love that word. In fact, it's part of my coaching field is that to reorient our vision and our perspective from one of a conditioned state, so we can analyze our paradigms and choose to orient it towards something that we consciously choose, right? Instead of just going to along with the program that we've been taught for whatever since we were young or whatever, we can reorient and choose to feel differently and think differently, and also do so from a context of the Indian ancient knowledge, the Vedas. So we orient towards the Orient, and
Hmm.
we all must have some basic structure of how we create meaning in our world, and it's either we choose it consciously or it gets chosen for us. So it's definitely about reorienting to win it, or as we were talking earlier, spinning it to winning it, spin it to win it. I think we can also, in the gist of it, understand that we have the ability, as we talked in our last podcast, to change our self-talk so that we can repeat different suggestions and create different outcomes than what we previously were doing.
Okay, so do you want to try it right now? I mean, see if you can adjust some of your thinking so that it makes you feel better.
Well,
So
in one
what could you
sense, I
do?
can reorient my perspective from that of thinking that I don't have the feeling of powerlessness, right? And
Hmm.
how if I feel constricted and trapped. And so one way of expressing and sublimating my anger is to put that into, because it's all energy, motion, energy and motion. I can move it towards my goals of first educating myself about these issues and then sharing them, using that energy to share it on a podcast like this, or my own YouTube videos, or my own blogs that continue to talk about personal self-development and the 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 world around, the reality of the world around us. So that's one way I could sublimate that energy instead of just
Nice.
constricting it or throwing it onto somebody or something, right? I can sublimate it into an action that I feel is appropriate to it. Yeah,
Right.
that's how I would
Yeah.
orient it.
Yep, you can not let it mess up your day and get you all fired up so
I
that
can
it
choose.
does a bunch of
No,
other
I can
stuff. And
choose. Yeah, I can
yeah,
choose.
right. You can choose, right? You got the power. I call it power, POWA, right? You got the power. Yes.
That's right.
That's a wonderful thing.
Sure is. All right, Matt, thank you so much. We're going to wrap this up for
Mhm.
today, and we'll continue next time with our next episode. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Please subscribe and hope to catch you on the next episode. Cool. See you then.
Right. Remember, feelings matter. Make them a priority.
Oops,
There
I
you
cut you off. Sorry. All right.
go. Oh, cool.
So yeah, that